Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February meeting of Public Safety here in Rutherford County. And it looks like a full house tonight, and if those of you that are watching on television tonight, no, we're not in room 205. Due to an overflow crowd for the room, we have had to move into our commission chambers here, and we're very glad to see so many that are out this evening. One thing I want to mention before we begin, we have a large number of our county firefighters here this evening, and due to their efforts this past weekend and over the past several days and what they have done as far as helping the people of Rutherford County. I was out Saturday with some of them that were filling sandbags with sand and placing them around a home out there, and they were doing a yeoman's job, I guess is what I'd have to say, and how they were doing it. Law enforcement have been taking their extra time to get people out of the flood areas and things of that type. We do appreciate what you do, and those of you that are not part of that group, let's just give them a round of applause for what they have done. Because this past few days, it's been quite trying for a lot of people here in this county. We still have roads that are closed, that are out there, that we've had an abundant amount of rain. And we want to remind people that, you know, if you get to those places where it's crossed the road out there, we ask that you do turn around. And please leave the barriers alone. Don't be moving those barriers, because that is a quite hazardous thing we're doing there. As we begin the meeting this evening, I'm going to ask that we have an approval of our minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the minutes of the last meeting and found them in order. I move to approve.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Have a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with an important part that has been discussed in several different things. We've been on this for, I guess, several months, and it deals with our communications project. And let me remind everybody that's giving reports this evening and discussing the different matters we have this evening, we want you to come to the lectern up front, use the microphone, because that helps us get this recorded for our records as well as on television. So I'm calling, who is carrying, I think the mayor. Mayor, we recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing all the first responders and all those departments involved in this system. I think all the commissioners will admit, and even those folks behind me, we have been kicking this can down the road for a long period of time. And for all the good work that Commissioner Gourley did when he was here, but and worked on this system, but he was able to do for about $3 million, he was able to keep it together with some baling wire and some Band-Aids and et cetera. But this county has approached the position of being the 4th largest county, and it's time that we bite the bullet and actually look at the systems. The systems are being presented to you tonight, and I'll let the experts come up and talk to you, because I've learned a lot since I've been meeting with them. One of the systems is the City of Murfreesboro system, and I've been referring to it as the local, because they'll explain to you how we can piggyback on those licensures for that system. And then the state of Tennessee TACN system is the other that we have looked at. It's in talking with all the different departments, I believe that the majority, I would just say all the departments, have said that what is in the best interest of the county is to go with the local system, because the TACN system, even though it's a state, that's what the State Highway Patrol uses, it can reach all the way to Memphis or whatever. However, it has difficulty on picking up the signal inside of buildings. So the incidence of our first responders being inside buildings is much greater than those who would be maybe the Sheriff's Department deputy picking up a prisoner, extraditing them back to Rutherford County. They're similar in cost, but I think we need to let the experts come up and talk about the systems tonight and see if we're prepared. The county commission, we'll have to bond this because it's such a large amount of money. But we actually can talk about the problems and legalities in the event that we don't go ahead and bite the bullet on this because of the legal ramifications. I think a large amount of our equipment is old. It's on analog, it's not on digital. The new digital systems will protect us because of those channels. Right now, any one of these analog systems can be hacked and can actually be turned off by a hacker while we're right in the middle of communication. Which really concerns me from the mayor's position, the liabilities that the county could encounter in the event that somebody dies or gets killed because of somebody hacking into the system. So it's my recommendation after close examination of this entire proposal is that the county commission, we look at the local system to piggyback on top of the local Murfreesboro channels. But I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and let the experts come up and talk about the differences and where the towers are located and how we communicate within this county.
Thank you, Mayor. Who do we start with? Who we begin with?
I'm going to let Peter come up and introduce himself and EMS.
You can look that way. That's fine. We can see your back just as well as your front from here, so we'll work that away.
All right, Mr. Chairman, committee members, what we've been looking at over past several months and actual year and so is looking at moving us forward where we presently are in the communication system and public safety from analog to a trunk system. We looked at different options. One was to build our own from the ground up. After we looked at the financial ramifications of that, of starting from the ground up, that was under the best decision not to look at that. The next options were to build out the the Metro system, Metro Nashville, the state TACN system, and the local government system. After looking at what we would benefit from Metro, we would benefit one tower. From TACN, we would benefit roughly 4 towers, I believe it is, and under the local system, we would benefit 5 towers. And what I mean by that is pre-existing sites on these trunk systems that are up and running. And what we were going to do is add our additional sites that we have in the county to those 3 systems, which ended up coming down to 2, the local and the TACN. We've looked at coverage on the street with a portable. We've looked at coverage on the street with a mobile. We've looked at coverage inside a light structure, residential. We looked at a medium-sized structure, which I like to say strip malls, more heavier construction. And that's a medium, and then heavy we didn't bother to look at. We stopped at medium. Motorola provided us with coverage maps based on scientific data that would show us the coverage. When we looked between the state and the local system, we pretty much had hand-in-hand coverage on the street, both mobile and portable, and in light structures. Once we left a light structure, our coverage inside a medium size was very decreased. So we continued to look at areas, look at sites that we needed to add to increase that, and we came down with the number of the sites we determined. And on the local system, we determined we would need to add 5 sites to their pre-existing 5, which would give us 10. From that point, we started doing testing on both systems with a portable. We got different agencies in the county, different buildings, different locations, schools, jails, juvenile detention, work center. We tested inside stores, homes, and we found that overwhelmingly we were getting better in-building coverage with a handheld on the hip from the local government system. We found areas where we can't presently talk now on our radio system that we had no problem on this trunk system. This trunk system allows us, what we cannot do now, expand. We're limited on the number of frequencies. We'll just say, if everyone knows familiar with the CB, we're limited on the number of channels we can talk on now. When we try to gain additional channels, we're having to get permission from other agencies, which means we're sharing that channel with them. Even though they may be in White County, we're still getting a frequency they use in White County, which we presently do today, and we get interference from that channel. So growing is getting harder and harder because people are gathering these frequencies up and they're using them, and they're using a digital format that is causing us problems. As the mayor said, hacking-wise, our managing of the system is decreased, where when we go trunking, we have the capability to literally, it's like your cell phone. It doesn't get cut on unless you go to the phone service. They give you that phone number, that ESN. You just can't go buy a phone, program it to work on the Verizon or AT&T network. We have that control. We also have the capabilities to grow as the county grows. We have the capability to offer law enforcement, fire, EMS, the school district, more channels called talk groups to use to expand as they expand. Where now we're limited to one conversation per frequency, where we're moving to a format that allows us 2 conversations per frequency. So the more frequencies you get, you multiply that times 2, and that increases your number of conversations that could happen at one time. We've done some networking with other agencies. We've looked at where they're heading, what they decided. Just last week, Lebanon had put in a Moto Turbo, which is a business trunking system, several years ago, and as of Friday, I believe, they have decided to put their own system, their own trunk system online. It's a P25, it's a standard, it's across the U.S. for public safety. They've decided that because they realize what they have now is they're having problems. Their system went down over 2 weeks ago for 45 minutes, and they had no clue that it was down, which means they couldn't dispatch, receive, or communicate at any time for 45 minutes. Part of this system is there's an annual maintenance and software upgrade agreement, which keeps us upgraded. Easiest way to explain it is Windows 95 to Windows 97 to 2010. That's part of the maintenance agreement, so we stay up to date with the latest software as in hardware changes. Though everything will stay up and running, as well as being replaced if it's no longer supported. With that also comes a monitoring service, which we presently do not have. Right now, we have an on-demand monitoring service where we have to physically look to see if our system is up and running or down at any time. So you can look now, you can go an hour from now and find that a site's down. That's one of the other benefits that we would gain from this. Also, as we see our counterparts adjacent to us, they're starting to move to this trunking system because of the capabilities, and they're beginning to grow. So what we've done is we've given it a hard look. We've given it some very good testing. We've gone to areas where you wouldn't think you could talk, and they can talk. With the mayor, with the recommendation of the mayor, we're looking to expand the local government system and ask the county that they would take that into consideration.
Any questions to Peter, Commissioners?
Did you say the testing that you did that include the schools? I may have missed it if you said schools.
That included schools. One example was in the Almoville area, we had a fire, potential fire in a boiler room last month where we had problems communicating on our present system. So crews went down and they tested both the TACAN system and the local government system, and they could stand in that room and talk on the local government system with no problem. Now add to that, the tower for that is on Fortress at 911. The state tower they're using is at Canes Ridge, which is not that far.
What school was that?
It's Brown's Chapel. We've done some testing in Stewart's Creek. We've done some testing in Rockville Elementary. I walked halfway up the hallway, could talk. Now, we're going to have, this is not a one-stop fix-all for every building in the county. There's areas like the Judicial Center right now that you can't talk on the first floor or in the basement with our present system. You can't talk no matter whose system in the basement right now. That's construction. That's nothing but a concrete prison down there. So,
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Let me finish asking here. You said you tested in the school. Did you only test the local government trunking system, or
No.
did you test the other?
No, sir, we did TACIT and local government.
And what was the results on the other one?
Local government, we would often get no comms, which means the radio would go red, so it wouldn't communicate at all. Majority of the times, the local government, we could talk and receive with no problems. There were several incidents throughout the county where they would both do it, but overall, we were having greater success with local government.
Okay, and now, historically speaking, having been out there pushing buttons on radios and not getting answers, there are dead spots in the county in certain areas. Did you pretty much check all those old dead spots?
So we had crews drive around with a portable on their hip in a vehicle. We checked Halls Hill, we checked Cripple Creek, we checked Rocky Fort, we checked 840 Couchville all the way down in the lake, and predominantly it was just no problems, clear as bell. And that's with their pre-existing infrastructure. That's without us adding to increase our in-building coverage.
When you say you were testing, you tested both, and you found no problem with both then?
No, at certain locations throughout testing, we would find that both systems would work. But overall, the local government would work in better and often locations that TACIT would not. TACIT was built for mobile coverage. That's why every highway patrolman carries a portable that talks back to his or her car, and then is repeated out of mobile radio.
But all your testing was done with a handheld?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. Number one, can we get a copy of the report? Electronically, preferably, instead of paper-wise. Because I think if we're going to vote on a multi-million-dollar project, then we need to see the report. My other question is, has anyone, from a technical standpoint, other than Motorola, taken a look at this, engineering-wise?
So both these systems are Motorola. TACIT's Motorola, and
I realize
the
that.
borough. So, no, we have not had an individual consultant look at this.
Okay. That would be
Because
something.
obviously that's an item that would have to be budgeted out.
Yeah, that's something that I really would like my fellow commissioners to consider, spending a few $1,000s to have someone totally independent take a look at it technically. I've been building systems, and I think Motorola makes a great product. I bought the first Motorola system for the state of Tennessee back in 1976, so that's how far back I go with Motorola. So I don't have a thing against Motorola, but Motorola will tend to many times say you what they want to instead of what you really need. And so by having an independent set of eyes look at this, I really think we would be doing ourselves justice. And it maybe save millions, because the 3.5, 4 years that I spent here working on what's in place now, many times I could buy a lot of things cheaper not buying it from Motorola. The same identical item from vendor X, and I could buy it off GSA or something another, several $1,000s cheaper. And but I think mainly from an engineering standpoint, from a technical standpoint of looking at this, because what I realized, the central Murfreesboro infrastructure is great, and it's geared for that central part of the county. I'm worried about places like where Pettis lives, where I live, and so on, of how many additional towers. I know what we have now and available that we've built already, but from the presentation that you presented at the EOC back several months ago, I saw some, on both systems, deficiencies and how we're going to fill that and who's going to make that determination and all that, so.
So we tested in Eagleville. For example, in the fire station, you can talk in there. On the local government, you can't on the state, and in the high school, you can get a little in through the lobby area, talk on the local, but you can't on the TACN. Now, both these systems are Motorola systems, so there is no other vendor per se that we could look at that could build out these two systems. It's like trying to build an Apple phone trying to work with an Android phone. So it is that one vendor. I will say that one vendor has not pushed us in a direction dollar related, but pushed in a direction that said this meets what you've asked for. And I've looked at I wanted 95% coverage in our county, and they've met that. Now, they haven't pushed us to the site that costs more. They've actually pushed us to the site that costs less because it benefits us more.
Yeah, I'm fully agree that Motorola is the way to go from a equipment standpoint. I'm strictly speaking from an engineering standpoint of looking at it, a second set of eyes. You know, if you're told you're going to have major surgery, a lot of times you may want a second opinion that just, because it is pretty complicated, and so that's something I just throw out here to my fellow commissioners and to the mayor and so on about the possibility of having an independent set of eyes. And I don't really think that cost a tremendous amount of money compared to the system. I think we're talking about if these figures are still in place, 15, 17, somewhere between 15 and $20 million.
So right now on the local government system, we're looking at $1 million up front, cheaper than the state, and over a 10-year period, we're looking at $425,000.
I'm not looking for a comparison. I'm looking for a number. We're looking at...
We're $1 million less.
No, I'm not looking for how much less we are. I'm looking for a number. How much will the local government system cost us?
Oh, okay, so that number, I cannot get a firm price. Right number, I'm at 16.5.
Okay.
I cannot get a firm number until the county determines what direction we're going in.
Okay.
Then that goes to Motorola for pricing. That's where the discounts get in. They look at the build of the system, where it can lead, what we're purchasing, and then we get that additional discount.
So we're talking somewhere between $15 and $20 million.
No, we're talking no more than, right now, we're set at 16.5.
I've never seen a project that didn't go over.
We stated we can't go, that's what we're doing, we can't go over 16.5. That's where the local government, if it's the state system, that number doesn't account.
If we spend say $25,000 or $30,000 having another set of eyes looking at it, that's just a fraction of a percent. Fraction be somewhere around 0.00 something another of that. So I still think it's well worth doing.
I have another question, too. The testing that you did, I assume, was EMA doing the testing?
It was fire, juvenile, adult, EMS, EMA.
What about the highway department, solid waste?
Solid waste right now is not in the plan. The highway department, no, they did not do testing.
They not have radios?
No, sir, they do not. They're presently on a simplex system, radio to radio. But Mr. Gregg is definitely interested in this and the coverage he would get out of this and the capabilities to interop if he ever needs to go outside the county or if the New Madrid ever happens. He has coverage.
Well, and you bring up a good point there. Part of the coverage I worry about are where you've got a man out there, whether he's a sheriff's department employee, EMS or fire, and not being able to communicate with a handheld. But some of these agencies, that's what God made cell phones for, I think. And we don't necessarily need radios for them. Maybe that's something we can discuss or part of it. but was that taken into account, what departments are using cell phones versus the radios now?
So Paul's, for example, used to use radios previously. They switched to phones. After discussion with them and the way society is nowadays, they saw a need for communications. And this is a great opportunity to provide them interop with law enforcement and any other agency in the county that's on the system. If they ever came to a situation where they need to communicate, as well as they could communicate as a group instead of having to pick up the phone, call one person, and then call that other person and deliver that message.
Last question, until I think of another one, is I've seen the situations where we've had tornadoes and we have multiple agencies on these frequencies. How are these two frequencies compare? How are they going to hold up to multiple agencies on there?
Right,
If
so
we have another Easter tornado.
So we're looking at roughly 22 conversations can occur at one time with this system.
On one frequency.
It's really no longer based on frequency, so we're doing 12 frequencies, which you have to have something in there for control, for data to cross back and forth, and each one of those frequencies is split, so there's two conversations going on, and you and I can have a conversation in one frequency, someone else could, and we'd never know it. So it gives us 22 talk paths at one time. Now, I'll give you Metro Davidson. They call it a busy. So when you key it up and all 22 talk paths are tied up for however long someone's in that conversation, they unkey, rarely ever does Nashville-Davidson get a busy on their system. And I think they're presently at 24 talk paths. So the days of the individual frequency are long gone now. Now it's turned into a talk group. It's like the old phone system where you called down to the hotel and you said, send me to this line. She reaches up and plugged that cable into that trunk system, sent you down to that circuit. That's what this is. And this gives us the capability to, like I said, grow, where right now Fire has really 3 channels they can use that are physical frequencies, physical repeaters, where this would allow them the capability to go to 15, 24. Not to say they would use those, but it gives the capability for them to grow, where right now we're stuck at 3.
And there wouldn't be overlap in a adjacent county like Wilson that's using the same system?
No, sir, it's all coordinated. So the frequency we use is coordinated, and interference is limited distance on the spacing.
I assume you're still talking about the local system. You're not differentiating between which one you're talking
Right,
about.
as a trunk system as a whole, they're both the same, the way they operate. Now, on the local system, it would just be us and the local government, where on the state, it would be a subsystem within the state system, but the state system's got that resource, they're going to use it.
You said a local government. Are you talking about Murfreesboro City?
Yes, sir. And this is an investment. We're not looking at 5 years and let's go buy a new computer. We're looking at 25 years plus. And with the annual maintenance agreement and software upgrades, that maintains our system at a ready level. If we get to year 7, and for example, your computer router or cable router at home breaks, you got to go buy one. Well, our cable router, we don't buy one. Motorola replaces it because it's part of our agreement that we pay for every year. So any of that technical hardware that's either no longer supported, it's now falls under that agreement, so they replace it where we don't have to come out of the pocket. That's pretty much, that's an insurance, a risk management insurance we pay for every year. Where right now, we have limited insurance in a maintenance agreement.
Well, it was almost 20 years ago that we as a commission made this system that you're talking about now. And I remember that was sorely needed at that time, and what it's been almost 20 years now, 18 anyway. So I can see that, we're in the need of an upgrade now. Exactly which way to go yet, I don't have too much information for the amount of money you're wanting to spend, so I'm kind of like the other commissioner down there. I need to see a little more of this.
Well, let me ask you, Peter, will this system removed from what we have right now, the continuing, can you repeat the communication? I listen to every now and then, and what I hear is continuing. Would you repeat that call?
Yeah, so, I don't think we have a radio here, but, so there is no static in digital. If you remember your cell phone, don't hold me to these years, 10 years ago, when you would talk, what did you say? It was, that's no longer with digital. Now it's either there or it's not. So can you repeat? No, that is not. And that, based on how we've been talking in the system, there is no can you repeat. The only thing is there can you repeat generally is I got the volume turned down. Now there is an occasion, any type where you may be, for example, there's one spot in the workhouse that there's a hallway, that a part of that hallway is the only spot in that building where your communications drop. They can't talk in that hallway now at all. But the little spots like that exist, it's intermittent in and out, but overall, there is no static and it's clear. So the days of, can you repeat, I hear static, that doesn't exist. That's.
Other questions for?
The money that you're talking about, and I assume it's just a rough estimate, but that's to build 5 towers. That's all the equipment that we would need. That's the handheld radios that would supply each and every department out there.
Yes, sir.
Including
Now,
sheriff department, ambulance service, fire departments, and also the radios to go into trucks and vehicles. So you're saying that estimate would cover all of that?
yes, sir. That also includes every school bus in the county. That also includes a a base radio in every school office that links into the school district. It also has an option on it, the school safe feature, that allows them to hit an emergency button. If someone's banging at the front door with a gun or comes in, an emergency situation, to pick your phone up and try to call 911. It's not to say they're not going to call, but all I got to do is I know that I reach over to my front desk and I hit a big orange button. And it notifies agencies that there's an emergency at Oakdale High School. That system's being utilized right now in Arkansas, Rogers, Arkansas. That's one feature we've looked at. The school system has a rough time in transportation, so this is going to give them capabilities where they can communicate throughout the entire county back to the administration as well as the schools. Now, the 16.5 includes those radios, but their partition of that they're buying would be removed from that cost.
I don't understand what you just said.
So the overall price includes those radios, but when it comes to paying for it, they will be billed, the school will be billed separately for their individual users. So right now, you're looking at that. You're looking at all law enforcement in the county would be on one system, so they could communicate. That's the workhouse. That's the juvenile detention. That's the new judicial center. That's SROs. That's law enforcement, patrol, jail. You're looking at all of fire, all of EMS, and schools. Looking at Paul's, highway department, and in the future, any other agency that feels they need to come on board, they'd have a platform to work from.
So you're talking about Smyrna, Laverne.
So Smyrna, Laverne is presently on the Metro-Davidson system. Smyrna is presently on the TACAN system. Several years back, they had built their own system, and then when they upgraded, they decided to turn it over to the state. And they work off a single site there in Moore Hill.
How would we communicate with those two agencies?
So there's interoperability frequencies that allow us to communicate with them. There's ways for us to patch their talk group to our talk group through a console. The state provides interop channels that allow us to talk to any agency in the state that has an 800 system. There's the ability to provide Smyrna, Laverne, a talk group on the local government system that they could switch over when they'd be on our system. So there's many ways that provide communications between agencies.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to expend up to $25,000 to hire an independent engineering consultant to evaluate this proposal as to the needs of Rutherford County in regard to the meeting the technical requirements that we need. And we can set forth some kind of scope of work, but I really and truly think that before we get any further and spend $16.5 million, that we really need a second set of eyes, just to due diligence to the citizens of Rutherford County. I'm all for this project. I think we should have moved forward a long time ago. It's been getting the money to do that. Obviously, this is going to require a bond issue, but my motion is to authorize the mayor to expend funds not to exceed $25,000 to enter into a engineering services contract with the appropriate vendor to evaluate these proposals. And
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I could get your input, are we talking about the potential of expending this amount of money? Is it not, it's not in the budget for us to do that this year. Would it be wise for us to wait until this coming fiscal year, this summer, to expend that money? And would it be wise to take this through the budgetary process this spring? I'm just asking.
Commissioner Phillips, thank you for asking that question. Yeah, something of this magnitude is going to have to go through the budgetary process for 1920 budget year, because we're going to have to go to the bond market on something this large. I mean, it's like half of a school, just about, what we're paying for this system. But you know, that's up to the commission. I think it would be good to hear from, to hear from each one of the agencies as to whether or not we need to spend the $30,000. If they're all in agreement, then, you know, I would yield back to Commissioner Gourley to let him, you know, say why we need to. But if they're all in agreement to go with one over the other, then do we need to spend that? Or do we just, I'm not sure about the process of how we put that out to bid. And I guess my next question would be, are there qualified people for me to spend the $25,000 that could give us a...
the answer to that is yes.
Okay, all right. So,
We do have an RF engineer here with Motorola who's now our sales rep, if you would like to ask him any questions.
He's here this evening.
Yes, sir. He represents Motorola the whole, so he has an interest in both systems.
I've got another question for you before we
Yes, sir.
go on, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
We're in that discussion right now, dealing with that motion, and that falls within that. Falls within the motion.
Well, it has to do with that motion. So you said earlier that Motorola was the only entity that could do this bid. Is that correct? And why is that?
Yes, sir. Both these systems are Motorola. They both follow the state contract. And for example, Vertex radio, you cannot build a Motorola system out with Vertex equipment. So we could not have another third-party vendor come in and say, okay, I'll build out either system with using my equipment. So it's all it all comes down to proprietary.
All right, the other question I've got along those lines are, have the Sheriff's Department, Mike, have you checked this out? Or, I mean, do you have opinion one way or the other? And if we need to suspend the rules to ask these guys this question, I'm willing to, but I mean.
Let me just say this. We have representation from just about every one of these emergency personnel that are here. And if you'd like to hear from all of those, we can do that. I think that's why we have a room full this evening. All these individuals have spent the last few years trying to figure out how to talk to each other and try to hear, and that's why we're trying to make this important decision. So if you want to do that.
I would like to at least ask the sheriff, the fire, and ambulance service if they have an opinion on one system or the other.
Want to suspend the rules to hear from these individuals?
Do we have to? Do we have to suspend the rules?
I really don't, but I'm just asking if you want to, Adam.
Communications on the agenda, I don't think we have to suspend the rules.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask all the members, I'm having a hard time hearing Commissioner P. over here, so I'm sure it may be difficult back there, but speak closer into your mics up there might help. Thank you, sir.
I don't think we have to suspend the rules. The subject of communication project is on the, and we can hear from anybody we want to hear from.
Okay, we'll do that. Sheriff?
Okay, the first time that we heard about this total, of course, we've been meeting on this on a couple of occasions, but we met a few weeks back. Obviously, our take on it was a little bit different in that I've got cars going all over this state. We're not just bound to Rutherford County. And so from that standpoint, of course, obviously TACN would benefit us more than a local system. As presented, the local system, obviously for in-building coverage, I can't argue with that and whatnot. I'm not going to have favor with our TK and group, but I'm in favor of a study. I think that we are getting ready to embark on a tremendous amount of money for a system. I will say this, I don't want to belabor it because we do need this. If you listen to our radio traffic today, the static that Peter was talking about, that's exactly what we had. I've got cars in situations over the weekend in floods and doing rescues where our dispatch cannot hear them. There was a mention made about using cell phones. If I've got an officer in a situation, critical situation, he ain't got time to pick up a cell phone and try to call somebody if he's got an armed suspect in front of him. Hit the button on the radio and holler for help. So yes, we need this, but I think with the amount of money that we're getting ready to spend, we need to be wise. Chief? He's got a whole lot more information. He's probably closer to an engineer as far as radio systems than I am. So if you have anything you need to add.
I think you said it, Sheriff. But it's very important we look at this from a broad perspective.
So you would favor doing a study, Mark?
I do. I do.
All right, I'd like to hear from fire and EMS also.
Okay, let's call from the fire department.
Based on the information that I've been provided and the extreme extra coverage inside of buildings is where we spend most of our time, the local system is what I favor. I will say if y'all decide to do a study, I would like to see that study done and completed before July 1st. We can go ahead and budget for this system, because the longer we study and look at it, the longer it's going to be for my guys can talk inside structures, and we have somebody go down in a structure and they can't get out, then they call a mayday, or we have a deputy out somewhere in the that needs assistance, can't get it. Then the more we study and look at this, the longer it's going to take to get a system in place. So if you want to do a study, I would ask that you find the funds in this budget to go ahead and do the study, complete it before July 1st, or by July 1st we can start putting this system in place. But I think the sheriff's issue is he wants to be able to talk cars to Memphis, because they do a lot of transporting down there. We're a little different. We're here in the county, and we want to be able to talk inside structures and buildings and stuff, because if I have a firefighter go down and it calls for a mayday, I want that dispatch or command to be able to hear that firefighter and be able to get help in there. We had a fire out on in the Allenville area here not long ago, and it was an arson fire. We couldn't communicate and understand each other the whole thing. You sit in and listen to the radio, it was nothing but static. And we've dealt with this. I've been in this county 10 years, and we need a radio system. And if y'all want to do a study, that's entirely up to y'all. I'll support that if we can get the money now and do the study, have it completed before July 1st, where we can go through the budget process and have this money in place. We can start building this July 1st. And that's, but I'm for the local system because of the ability to be able to talk inside structures.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm going to call up right now, there's the retired chief from the Eagleville Fire Department back here, and he's dealt with this a number of years, and Eagleville has been on the very extreme rim of what we deal with this. Chief, would you come forward? I'm sorry to call you up like this because you wasn't expecting it, and ladies and gentlemen, he hasn't been set up for this. He's speaking totally from his pocket.
I am. I'm not here to represent the city of Eagleville. I'm a retired fire chief from Eagleville and retired from the city of Nashville Fire Department. I now am the safety officer for Ketron Fire Department and trying to assist them to make sure that we do everything safe. Ketron has the same problem with all the other fire departments in the county, and radio communication is a big issue. And I do know that you do need to get to a digital system quickly for the safety of the firefighters, and I support Chief Larry Farley and his point about inside structures is vital to us, and that's we do need communication from the vehicles in exterior areas of the county, but inside the structures is what is vital to the firefighter's life, whether they're going to go ahead and make it out alive or not.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Mr. Nunley?
First of all, let me say that I'm not a technical person when it comes to radios. About all I know about them is you push the button and talk into them and you hope somebody answers you. But I would point out that in every after-action report that's ever been done in any disaster anywhere in this United States, the main issue is always lack of communication. These systems would tie that together. It couldn't be anything but a good thing. In our particular instance, the local system would be the preferable one, but we're mostly confined to our county, and we're mostly in buildings, and so that's just my position. Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to clarify the intent of my motion. My motion, the intent is to request those funds, authorize those funds from unencumbered funds from fund balance for this year, so that we can immediately go to work seeking a consultant. That should be able to be done within a couple of weeks, and I would think, and give them something like a 60-day turnaround. I assume you have all the information, the same information that we requested, coverage charts, plots, and all that. From one of the things that I can envision that they would be doing would be working with Motorola, because like I said, and like you said, it's not whether we're going to buy another vendor's equipment. It's going to be a Motorola system. The question is what best fits us. Any system can be made 100% in-building coverage if you want to engineer it properly, be it expanding the local system or the TACAN system. In my career, I've built over 250 cell sites, engineered those, as well as several other systems. So it can be done. I think we need an independent set of eyes to take a quick look at this, get all the information that's been produced by Motorola, evaluate, talk to the agency heads, get their input, and all that type of thing. It needs to be done now. I fully agree with the department heads that have spoken. I would like to see this get moving in the 2019-2020 fiscal year. That's the intent of my motion.
So for pricing, we're looking at 3 weeks needed to get a price from Motorola. So if we hand them a document in 2 weeks or less, before we go to budget. You know, if anything's in a hurry, you're not going to sit there and look at it. You're going to say, just put this number down. That's one thing we do have to take into account. They're in a business, we're in a business. So there is time that we want them to look at our document, look at what we're paying for, what we're getting, the future growth on it, and give us the best possible price than just saying, I don't have time for this, I got to get it kicked out. Okay, we're going to get a number. That number could be good, that number could be bad, but generally that number's bad in business when you're in a hurry to throw a number out. So that is one thing that we have to look at moving forward that affects our pricing. Right now, we're on the local government system, we're at 16.5, like I said, 17.5 on the state, and once we determine if we're going right or left, their package gets finalized, and then they send it to their corporate headquarters, who does all their pricing, final pricing.
Okay, I've got a question before we vote. Okay, we have a consultant to do the studying, and I think it's been said basically that this will be a Motorola system. Am I not right?
Yes, sir.
What this will be. Now, the consultant will be contacting Motorola in this. We've already said we're going to get a Motorola system, and he's going to study whether or not we get a Motorola system, and we're going to pay $25,000 to see if we get a Motorola system? I mean, I'm just trying to figure this out.
There's quite a bit more to it. He needs to be looking at sites, et cetera, as to whether we get the kind of coverage. As I said, any system, if we want to put enough sites or put additional sites onto any system, it's not a matter of whether TACAN or the local system. It needs to be that the system engineered for Rutherford County is complete and fully does what we need to do. We don't need to come back a couple of years from now and find out that we've got 3 or 4 dead spots and so on, and we need another $3 or $4 million.
What's the guarantee of that?
I don't know that there's ever a guarantee, but you would hope that someone with engineering expertise would be able to do that. Like I said, I would use the closest analogy I can give is getting a second opinion. We're talking about spending a fraction of a percent, 0.1% or less, to look at whether we're going to spend somewhere between $16+ million.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A couple other questions. Mr. Cass, do you concur with the gentleman up here that you should go to a local system?
Since we started down this road, one of the things, and you can ask Pete how many times I've insisted on this, that from an EMA standpoint, we stayed in the middle because I knew there would be different options. And I didn't want us to come down on either side. I wanted to look at it as dispassionately as we could and be right down the middle. But after looking at everything, neither system, every system we're going to build, is going to have some issues, very small issues, except for the in-building coverage. And that's where I support going forward with the local option.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Gourley's motion too. Is your reason for asking for this $25,000, which I don't like spending, first of all, because I think we're smart enough to make some of these decisions, or at least the men that we're bringing up here and questioning are, is this study to decide whether we want to go to a local or to the state, or is it for something other than that? I mean, I understand that, you know, location of towers can make a difference on coverage, things like that, but I mean, what is the scope of this study you're wanting to do? We want to throw $25,000 at it.
Earl, that's...
You want me to produce a scope of work tonight?
I want to know what I'm going to vote for $25,000 on, yes, sir, if that's what it is.
I would prefer that the consultant look at what Motorola has produced, look independently at the coverage and availability, second set of eyes, to look at what we need. Like I said, we're talking about a lot of money, and like I said, I built hundreds of sites. I know the complexity of it. It's not an easy thing to do. It's something that we should be doing to let our taxpayers know that we take spending $17 million of their money seriously. Like I said, we're talking about just a few dollars, and I'm not talking about delaying the project. I'm talking about approving this out of current fiscal money and getting it moving. But I've spoke my piece. I'll allow...
Mr. Chairman, I have a statement. And Commissioner Gourley and Peter right here can correct me if I'm wrong, but regardless of what system we go with, we sign a contract for TACA, or we sign a contract with a local system, Motorola's going to come in here and we're going to get a lock and key. It's like building a house. They paint, do everything. We get a lock and key system. They're going to live here till we can talk, and they're going to get paid till we can talk. So once we go down that road and we sign a contract with somebody to build, whether it be the TACA system or the local system, the contract's will say we will be able to speak or talk in these places. And they're not going to leave here until we can talk, because they're not going to be paid. Is that correct? So that's what we're looking at, is having somebody come in, do a lock and key job where they guarantee they'll come in and they're going, where system we go to, they'll determine what we need. It'd be a lock and key system. And they'll live here until we can talk. And they won't get paid until we can talk. So, I mean, that's my understanding on the systems.
Hey, gentlemen, are we
Still got
Gammon?
Yeah, do we not have a contract with Critical Mission Communications?
No, oh, so that'd be a whole 911 option. No, sir, we do not.
Okay. I'm going to tell you my concern is, I agree with Commissioner Gourley, is sometimes, always, it's better to have another set of eyes, as was said earlier, but I think, nothing against Motorola, but I think if Motorola does their own RF study on this, they're too close to the flame. I'm sorry. And I don't think this is going to hold it up if we go ahead and move on this any more than it would to do the study. I think you need to have everybody on board at each department, and I get a feeling they're not 100%. They want what we want, but I don't think everybody's on board. And you're talking about a difference of anywhere from $14 to $16 million, maybe, that this study could do, and that's a pittance, of the $25,000 of what may be saved from the study. But I think you've got to have all departments out here, that way we're growing, to do this right. I've been involved in this for many, many years, as long as everybody else. And how long it's taken to get to this point, and we need to do it right. And so for me, this is the first time this is fully coming in front of me in the position I'm in now. I prefer to have more, it's not necessarily more information. I know what you know, and I know you know your business, but I also know that Chief Lowry and other chiefs out here, Farley, and they know their business too. But I just feel like, without going further with this, is that we just have to do this in the right direction. Not trying to slow it down. It needs to be done.
The capabilities that the sheriff's office has, we've found issues that resolve that. Being able to talk from Memphis back to Rutherford County, the key is, if something happens in the road, they need immediate care or immediate action, immediate assistance. The Highway Patrol has a talk group that we have access to free. It's to every dispatch center in the state.
That's still not my full issue.
Right.
The full issue is, I want somebody else to tell us that it's going to cost us $16 million, not just Motorola.
Right.
Sorry.
So I will say that, of course, the more we add to the system, the more it goes up. That's either system.
I've been a county employee 38 years and command 20 years of that, and I know what you're saying.
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
I think Mr. Burlock's here from the schools. I think they play an important part with our children on buses, at least to give some comments, and maybe Mr. Brooks from the Highway Department.
I'm David Grimm. I'm the safety director for Rutherford County Schools. I've looked at this system. I've talked to TK. I've been in the presentations, and we are supportive of it and the need for it. There's no doubt that in the event of a school emergency, it would be critical to be able to, for the people in the school to get a hold of law enforcement and to cross-communicate with other public safety. And this is something we need today. This isn't something we need tomorrow, folks. Right now, we're in a position where people cannot get out in the schools. The officers and the people in the schools cannot reach other officers or the sheriff's department in subtimes.
I just add to that, one of the big things, communication. That's a huge thing that we've been working on our safe schools. Some of our schools, you know, we've got over 275,000 square foot under roof, and it's very challenging. We've had some situations that come up with power outages and things of that nature that's prevented us from getting out in terms of communication, either by cell phone or by landline. So, you know, I've listened to a lot of things here, and I understand the gravity of the situation, but I just want you to take in consideration as we go forward with our safe schools. You know, we've all seen things in the paper. We know that what's occurring in our society, and this is a big part of this communication. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Brooks?
I really didn't come to speak, I came to listen, but I will tell you that the communication systems that we have, the radios that we have now currently at the Highway Department are inadequate just for our day-to-day operations. So if we were to be called on to assist in a disaster, not just in a flood situation like we had this past week, but in a disaster, then there's no way we can co-communicate with any of our first responders. So in talking with Peter, I have made arrangements in our upcoming budget at the Highway Department to be able to fund the equipment necessary, the equipment that I feel like will be necessary for us to move forward and pay our part for our equipment if we go with the system that he's talking to you about. There have been a lot of changes in the communication world. I know Mr. Gourley knows that. I know Peter knows that. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't be talking on radios at all right now. And another thing that, you know, compared to the Sheriff's Department or the Fire Department or the ambulance service, it's not as relevant, but it's important to me and it's important to my people. We can't communicate through a work zone. Our work zones can sometimes extend out to 3/4 of a mile or a mile long. We can't communicate radio to radio. So if we're flagging an operation, and like I said, I know this is trivial compared to some of the things that have been discussed here tonight, but if we have a flagging operation, we can't communicate from one end to the other of a work zone because we can't reach it with the system that we have now. And it's a big deal to us. I mean, it's important to public safety, you know. Typically, the people that get hurt in the work zone is the motoring public. Obviously, the workers can be hurt as well, but, so, that's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Did you need some numbers so you could completely understand the difference in these two systems, monetary numbers?
You could give them to me. Gentlemen, you want those numbers?
I'd like to see them, but I've still got another question or two, and let me start by saying this. If I was going to ask anybody in this room about communications, it'd be Joe Gourley. You know, that's been his career, and he's definitely been an asset to this community as an employee, and of course now as a commissioner. The question I still got, though, on this $25,000, I hate letting go of pennies, even if it's only a fraction of $1 million I'm going to spend, is I've listened to 6 different individuals that head up the departments, and out of those 6, only our sheriff's department says, let's go with the, not the local. And in my book, Mike, you could use a cell phone. Of course, he's saying he's got a patch here with the highway patrol. So to me, there's not a question of which way we need to go. I think going to the local system is a no-brainer after talking to these gentlemen. And I think that, you know, they know when we're asking this question, we're going to have to decide how we're going to spend our money. Now, the question I got on as far as spending $25,000, is that going to give me a competitive bid or a better price than what we've got right now? And is Motorola the only people that can do a system like this that will do this job? That's what I need to know. If not, I don't see throwing away $25,000.
I'd say competitive bid, I don't see it, because now you're bringing a third party involved in it. It's delaying a process. That's Peter speaking. And yes, Motorola is the only one. I will tell you one thing that was in our pricing that made a difference is on the TACN system. If the sheriff's office, fire department, EMS, anyone in the county adds 5 people, adds 5 radios, every time you add a radio on the TACN system, you're going to multiply that times $200 a year. Well, on the local system, we're part owners of it. There is no ad. We buy the radio, it goes on the system. So that is one thing that, I don't know if you're aware of or not, that the state system has a user fee attached to it. And there's no one to say that user fee is going to go up tomorrow. Upcoming budget, right now it's $200 per radio. So for every responder, that's $400 because they have a mobile and a portable.
I'd like to make one comment, and I think we've debated, I mean, we have a motion on the floor and a second on, as far as expending the $25,000, but I'd just like to reiterate, if we're expected to vote on anything beyond that, we don't have a copy of the report. It's kind of like with the landfill. Back last year, I got up and, you know, we didn't have a copy of the report. We wound up delaying voting on that till we got a copy of the report. There were all kinds of excuses given as to why we couldn't get a copy of the report. We came back in February and voted 21-0 to not expand the landfill. So I don't have a copy of the report. I don't know whether any other commissioners on this committee have a copy of the report or not.
But the Motorola 3-ring binder report, their scope of work, what's involved, what we're paying for, what we're getting, cannot be done until we determine if we're going right or left.
There's a lot that can be done. You've got to be making some kind of decision of something, and if you expect us to approve expending that kind of money, then that information needs to be shared.
Right, so they've given us coverage maps, equipment list of individual subscribers, individual tower sites, and the software add-ons, the licenses, that part of those licenses that we're using on the local system has already been purchased by the city. It's not out of our pocket versus on the TACN system, that's something we would have to purchase. So we've been provided that, but the official document that comes from Motorola cannot be created until we decide what direction we're going in. So they've given us enough information to look at, do testing, and determine a base cost and a baseline of coverage.
You're saying you have been provided that, but what I'm saying is we as commissioners have not been provided that. And yet we're the ones expected to vote on expending $17 million. Let's go ahead. I withdraw the motion on expending the $25,000. I withdraw that motion if my fellow commissioner will withdraw his second.
I will. Motion has been withdrawn.
But I still think a more important thing is that we're being asked to vote tonight on something that we haven't even seen. And I can't do that.
I think the thing, that if we decide direction to move this forward in the budget system, then that document would be provided before budgetary hearing.
That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable.
Hey, we have the maps. We have the breakout that's to be provided now.
How many systems have you built, Peter?
I haven't built any systems, I consulted with one.
And
So we're speaking trunking, digital trunking, not analog. So, I mean, that's the information I provided to you. I'm giving you what I think and other responders
what
have
I'm
tested.
asking is, I want to see what Motorola has provided you. I want to see. If it can't be shared, say so, then we've got a problem.
Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I happen to agree with Commissioner Gourley. I was provided a copy of a draft that has both the two systems in it, the coverage areas, the equipment to be purchased, the price, et cetera. I'm kind of disappointed, Peter. TK, I'm disappointed that this was not presented tonight. Well, when... Well, no, sir. I told you to be prepared when we got ready to come to Public Safety Committee, and I was expecting to see some PowerPoint and a handout of some sort. So I guess we'll have to, Commissioner, I don't want you to vote on this until you have a copy of this and you see the areas of the county of where the TACAN system is in the county, where the towers are located, et cetera. I'm apologize that that was not presented to you tonight.
So we can provide electronically, we can do it tonight, that's not a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion that we defer this till our next meeting. They provide this information, put it in our mailboxes, let us pick it up, have some time to look at it before we walk in on it cold. That's my motion.
I have a motion to defer to the next meeting.
I have a question, if I may. Ask a question again.
No discussion until you get a second or not.
I hadn't got a second on this motion.
Need a second?
Yeah, a second.
Need a second?
Got a second. Now,
All right. Let me ask you this question again. May not have posed it right. Mission Critical, who are they?
Who are they?
Yeah.
Mr. Critical is a company that does, not research, but is a consulting company.
Who's the latest one they've done that you know of?
The latest Mission Critical study was done was 911 and a fiber loop for 911 and dispatch centers.
They do anything for Memphis?
I'm not sure if they were the consultant for Memphis or
Are
not.
they the state contractor?
Yes, they have a state contract.
Critical, the state contractor.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure for a fact, but I believe they are.
Well, I'm not jumping on you, but you
Yeah.
should know. If I know, you should know.
I'm not sure if they're considered I'm not exactly sure where they fall in the categories of consulting, but...
Need to find out.
Okay.
we have a motion to defer this until we all get our reports. It's been second? We have a second. We have a second. Discussion?
How would us deferring this affect the timing of this whole process?
The key is we need a direction what to go in. Not to sign a contract, but we need a direction if we want to move forward with TACAN or the local. So that all determines, that leads up to the final package being done, all the T's and cross I's dotted to make sure we've got the equipment list correct, all the tower infrastructure information correct, and then that's sent to Chicago where they do their final pricing. And I've been told that's a 2-week process for that portion of it.
I get more confused the further we get into this, and it may be me, but all I've heard is everybody, every single solitary person that's opened their mouth tonight says we need the system, we want the system, and we're going to approve the system. And now I've just heard that what we should be approving is a concept, and then you'll present the full package and the full budget at the next meeting. Is that correct?
So I think what in between now and then, you're going to see the coverage maps and equipment list. So we had a users group that Commissioner Gourley attended where we showed the initial coverage maps. Only thing we didn't have was the medium-sized structures and a boundary that shows coverage inside the county and then extending out 5 miles. Does that confuse?
No, what I want straight in my mind is, do we need this package that we can look at to make a decision on the concept? And that's what I'm asking. Do we need to do that, Mr. Mayor? Do we need that to make a decision tonight on the concept, and then they can bring back the full package and have other information for us available?
That's up to this body. If they want to look at something, then we have enough time to come back to the March committee meeting and get it through the budget process. If you feel comfortable in moving forward, because as you heard the school board, they need it now. Every month that we delay is another month without that service. Well, we're going to be in next year's budget anyway. Before the school board, they'll be out for all summer, but we still have emergencies every day and need to be communicating. So yeah, we've struggled by for this long, patched. I think we can struggle if this committee feels like that they need a copy of this, and I'm sure when we get to budget, you referred to budget, they're probably going to want to see a copy of it too and see what the numbers are. And then you're going to have to distribute all 21 when you get into the big meeting, okay, in front of the full commission. So, it's up to this commission. If they want to delay, it's not going to hurt the timing. If you want to pass it tonight and then get a copy of it, send it on to budget, and let them figure out the money, you can do that.
I don't know that we have consensus entirely. The Sheriff's Department is by far the largest user in terms of numbers of units. And we've heard that they're not 100% sold on this. So I kind of go back to what I said in my initial motion a few minutes ago, and that was having an independent set of eyes, totally non-biased, as far as they don't have anything, prejudiced in this. We know it's going to be a Motorola system, but exactly which way we go. But I do think we need, as commissioners, in order to do our due diligence, we need to have the information. If you need help in understanding it, I'll be happy to meet with any of you and help you understand it. But we need that. I don't like to vote on something of this magnitude without getting the package. I think every commissioner should be on that list. You have a users group, but I think especially members of the public safety should be invited to that users group. Anytime you're going to be discussing this, if we're going to be expected to spend, let's just say, round it up, $17 million, then let's do it intelligently. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we have a motion on the floor to defer to the next meeting until all members have packets. All those in favor of the motion, I'm going to have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Urban? Yes. Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gourley? Yes. Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? No. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
No. The motion passes.
All right, thank you for your time. I'll get that. You should see it in your email box tonight or in the morning. And just to clarify, what do you want in this package? You want dollar amount, equipment amount, as well as site maps, which shows what coverage?
We want everything you've got.
Okay. Take care of that.
Mayor?
Next item on the agenda, I'll defer to Mr. Sandlin to give you a report.
Yes, sir. Park and Study, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The mayor presented to the PBA this last meeting for a park and study, and the PBA has contracted with KCI Technologies Incorporated They will be doing the study out of the ending fund on the new judicial building, and it'll be $9,460, and they'll be doing that in 2 phases, so they'll be starting that in very quickly. They didn't give us an end date, but they thought about 60 days would take the time to do the full investigation study of 319, the parking garage, as well as the new judicial building and the health building behind it and the surrounding parking and the issues that we're dealing with, and come back with the results.
I believe we have Commissioner McAdoo. I believe you were at our last meeting on that. Do we want to refer this to your committee from there?
Yes, you can defer it to my committee, but this is information for your committee since I brought public safety in.
Okay.
Questions?
Property management.
Property management.
On the property management. I need a motion to that account.
Make a motion to approve and forward it on to
Property management.
Property management. I'll have a second. Second, any discussion? All those in favor of deferring it on to property management, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Now, if we get the rest of them to move this fast, we'll catch up. All right, fire and rescue report, I believe. Nope, yep, fire and rescue is up next.
I guess I'll stand up here and let everybody look at my back, since everybody left. This last weekend, as you know, was a very busy weekend for us. We did have a situation. We had couple water rescue, swift water rescues that we went in. We've had multiple MVAs with fatalities because of the water, among other things. And we had a house that was about to be flooded out in Royal Glen subdivision Saturday. I set up a command post at SORT when we started having a lot of rescue calls, and then we got with SORT and had SORT there, and I had a team there, and had dispatch to send us to notify us if I had a call. That way we could send the resources in the appropriate manner. When I realized that we were had a house that could be taking on water, we need sandbags. We got sandbags from TEMA, and I called Greg Brooks. I said, Greg, I need some sand. I said, because we're going to have to fill these sandbags up. He said, I can call, and I want to give a big shout out too on this meeting to Hawkins Paving. I called Greg, told him what I needed. He called Hawkins Paving on a Saturday. Within an hour, that sand was on site. We had multiple people from the fire department, our department, volunteer fire departments, and the workhouse came out and started shoveling sand into these bags, tying these bags off. Neighbors got involved, and they set up what looked like an old bucket parade. They loaded up pickup trucks, backed them down the road in the driveway, and it literally stood in line and handed the bags off until they stacked them around the house. Water went completely around the house, diverted it, and I don't think one drop of water got in the house. We saved the house. But I just want to tell you how much I appreciate Greg and being able to contact him, and he said I can get it. I can get it from Hawkins Paving. I want to give them a shout out tonight because they didn't have to do that. And to be able to call somebody in the state of what we had Saturday and have that sand on the scene was unbelievable, and I just thank Greg and Hawkins Paving both for that, so I'm make sure I give them a shout out, because that's it's all about building relationships in this business, and I appreciate Sheriff Fitzhugh and Mike Nunley and Greg Brooks. It takes all of us to, sometimes it takes a village to come together and do this. This last month, we ran a total of 441 calls. We had 233 medical calls. We had 3 structure fires, 7 vehicle fires, we had 24 motor vehicle accidents with injuries. We had 39 without injuries and had 1 extrication. But since I did this report about the middle of the month, this last week we've probably had about 10 extrications and multiple rollovers and everything else, and a lot of it on the interstate and with the water pooling up. Total year-to-date numbers, we've had a total of 6 structure fires, 9 motor vehicle fires, 390 medical calls so far, 35 MVAs with injuries, 64 without injuries, and 3 extrications for a total of 727 calls year-to-date. The next sheet is the total rundown of the volunteer departments. So far, total of this up to the end of February, or excuse me, end of January, we've had 12 structure fires, 9 brush fires. We've had 14 vehicle fires, 116 motor vehicle accidents, and 1 extrication, and for a total of 565 calls countywide. The next is the document I turned into the codes department that had structures that had damage in Twin Oak Drive, Cynthia Lane, and Barrett's Ridge. The fire investigation report, we had 3 call-outs. One was accidental, one was undetermined, and the other one is still under investigation. You'll see Pete Officer Road was threats made, and we actually set up cameras and caught people in the act of trying to set this structure on fire. We actually put up hunting cameras on trees. The Get Alarm, y'all are familiar with the grant we got from the federal government. And we've installed 39. We had 3 different canvases. We installed 39 smoke alarms in December. We had another one in January. We installed 120 smoke alarms, and countywide we've installed 40 of the hearing impaired smoke alarms so far year to date. And I did pass out a thank you note we got from a lady who sent us a thank you note. Her husband was gravely injured, and we our fast truck responded to their calls. It was Laura Stover, Jack Boone, and Zach Morris. The patient did pass away, but she just wanted to send us a thank you note, just talking about how very professional they were and how supportive they were to her and during that tragic event. And she said she knew it was probably pretty hopeless to revive him, but we did work it and worked it hard, and she wanted to appreciate all of our efforts in sending that out. Another thing I want to bring up, our walk to a station. It's our A shift. It's the second time they've done this. We had a call of an unresponsive patient. They did respond. They did CPR on the patient. This is the second one, and that woman is alive and breathing now. And of course, EMS gets on the scene. They start working her too, and we were able to get her, because of the CPR, we were able to get her to the hospital, and she's still alive today. So that's 2 saves just doing that out there on the same shift, just different times. So I know we're running medical calls and working with EMS, and it makes a difference because a lot of times we can get there fairly quickly and start resuscitation. So seeing good results. And I appreciate the public safety's support on this weekend. Your chairman was out there in full support, cheering us on, and we always appreciate that. That's my report.
We've got a motion and a second of approval of the report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Probation. Good evening, sir.
Report will be very quick and brief. This will be happy to everybody. We seem to be a well-oiled machine here lately, so this should go pretty smoothly. Our stats for the month of January, we had 52 individuals admitted into our drug court program, As you'll see, still about 50 to 60% of all of our cases are involving some sort of opiate and/or heroin. DUI, we are roughly at 42 individuals in the program. Veterans courts, we have had an increase. We are up to 16 now, veterans in that program. And in mental health, we are staying steady right at about 30. But everything seems to be going pretty well with that. Not really a whole lot to talk about on that one.
Yeah.
And for probation, I'm sorry.
Just move right on through.
Okay. For probation for the month, our monthly expenditures for the month of January was $135,178. Total revenue collected down at the department was $49,965.50, of a difference of $85,212.50. As you'll see down below, the bottom for the month of January, $10,868 came in on a voluntary payment agreement. Those that failed to go to the court and enter into any sort of payment agreement once the probation was finished was $22,249.10. So we still have more people running from the courts than we actually do coming on and making good on their payments. So we have to work with the judges. There's got to be something that we can do with the judges to be able to stop that. Total for the fiscal year for those that are on voluntary payment agreements to the county is $78,389.50. Those that have failed this fiscal year is $164,457.35. So we have got to do a little bit better job with our judges in trying to keep those individuals coming in and making those payments. So outside of that, our reentry offender program will start in operation at the Work Center on March the 4th. Thankful to the superintendent back here for allowing us to come in, and I think this will be a good program. But outside of that, subject to any questions you may have, that's my report.
Motion to approve the report.
I have a motion to approve. Have a second. Commissioner Irwin. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your work over there. Yes. Pause. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I wanted to introduce, this is Shay Harrington. She is the field supervisor. That way you have a name and a face. If something happens and I'm not at a meeting or something, she'll be filling in for me, so you'll welcome her at that time.
Good evening.
So for the month of January, we had 480 animals come into the shelter. We had an adoption reclaim percentage of 80.7% and a euthanasia rate of 9.5%. It gave us an overall live release rate of 88.7. Those numbers are a little bit skewed. You're used to seeing like in the 5 to 6% range on the euthanasia. We did host a euthanasia class in January and in February, so that some of our folks got trained as well as others. So that number went up a little bit because some of those other agencies brought in animals, and that counted in that number as well. We had 78 animals that were reclaimed through our surgery program and 33 cats that were released through the trap neuter release program. We had about 2,450 people come into the shelter, and we had 2,166 voicemails for the month. Our officers completed 1,785 calls, traveling almost 12,000 miles. Fiscal year to date, we've had 3,801 animals into the shelter. We've had a live release rate of 90.9%. Our officers have ran over 13,000 calls and traveled 83,520 miles. The next part of the report is the rabies exposure and bite report. If you'll recall, this goes by calendar year versus fiscal year. For the month of January, we had 28 bites. One of those was sent off for testing, did not come back as positive, and we had 8 other exposures with none of those being sent off for testing.
And the Rockville skunk's gone.
It's gone. New year.
How are we faring in the courts? Has that changed, or?
We had a meeting the day after the last public safety meeting between the mayor and Steve and Josh McQuarrie and Shay and myself, and some things were brought up, and there was a meeting last Tuesday between Josh, Judge Ishod, Judge Bennett, and Shay and myself to talk through some of the issues that we're having. Josh is working on some forms that hopefully will make some things better there regarding one of the processes. It seems like there's definitely still work to be done, some things that Josh and I will need to sit down and talk to the mayor about a particular direction he think would probably be best to go on this.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Have a motion to approve the report? Motion to approve, have a second down here. Commissioner Shandy. Jeff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Glad to have you.
Sure.
On the hiring process, have you been successful?
We have all 10 officer positions filled for right now. One of those will be starting in a couple of weeks. We've had some movement on the front-end staff. One of our folks that was hired as the full-time kennel lieutenant, one of them has moved up, so we're having to work on backfilling that position and still trying to get another couple of part-time folks. So we're improved from where we were, but we're not where we'd like to be, obviously.
I'm assuming overtime's still up and high and...
Well, since we funded those 3 full-time positions, we were able to take the in-house staff that were having to come in and clean early every day off of overtime. So overtime has gotten more manageable by having those kennel attendants. That was a move in the right direction. Yes, sir.
Emergency management.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you have my report. It was a fairly quiet month up until, as you know, middle of last week. There's nothing in the report that addresses those. Fire Chief Farley covered most of what was going on there. I will tell you that at what we go into the phase of this that we're going into now is, of course, recovery. I've sent information out to request information from the different agencies, the different governments within the county to start looking at what their costs were, so that we can request public assistance. Now, we have to meet a certain threshold for public assistance. Some of you may be aware of this, some of you may not be, and our magic number is based on our 2010 census, and it comes to about $992,000, just short of $1 million. So if we don't meet that, then of course we will not receive public assistance. So I've sent this out to the other departments, the city governments as well today, to see where we are. Now, having said that, some damage you can't see until the water completely recedes. So this is an ongoing process. So we're working through that at this point. That's the only thing that would add that's to what Chief Farley had already told you about it. As far as this past month, like I said, it was reasonably quiet. We spent quite a bit of time teaching some classes, a MERT class, which is a meteorological, radiological equipment class. We also participated in some courses in Nashville. I also have one of my people that's been going to some training at the Emergency Management Institute in Maryland. Upcoming events, next 2 days we'll teach an ICS 300 course, which is Instant Command System for expanding events. Going to attend a meeting with the school superintendent, Spurlock, because the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents has a part of their meeting in Smyrna on Thursday that's directly about school safety, so he invited me to attend that with him. We'll be teaching a hazmat awareness course at SORT here on March the 6th. And we're judging some projects at Overall Creek Elementary for them on the 20th. Like I said, there's 2 responses on there. Does not include what happened with the flood because the report was already in by then. In the interest of time, subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Any questions? Commissioner Irwin, I made a motion. Second. Commissioner Serino. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Juvenile detention report. Good evening.
All right, you have in front of you our reports for the month of January, and I would like to add that Wilson County and Sumner County, we have received their checks, so they are paid up. And the other counties, as usual, we expect to receive those payments prior to the next meeting, and that shouldn't be an issue. Beyond that, I don't know that there's anything of interest or that needs to be specifically discussed, but I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, gentlemen?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion's made to approve the report. Second. All those in favor of approving the report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Report approved. Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Okay, Correctional Work Center. Good evening.
I have our normal monthly report, and then, of course, we'll go over that first if you all would like, and then talk about this grant application. Our normal monthly report, no significant changes there, other than the fact that I think this morning we had 191 inmates, and that's the first time we've been up that high in several years. Thanks, Mike. We're working well to try to separate out some of that population and get ours up and theirs down. That seems to be working correctly. Our yearly activity report, if you'll take a look at that, there's not a whole lot of significant changes to it. Work release program, the next one, going great. We're looking at a couple of new companies too that we're going to hopefully be adding pretty soon. And then the monthly worker report with a total combined savings of $105,248 that we saved by working inmates throughout the county and with other agencies and municipalities. And the mayor and I were talking about that, I guess it's been a few weeks ago, and just wanted to kind of emphasize the fact that, having these guys out here every day working in the community saves us that monthly. I know Chief Farley mentioned that, we had some inmates out there on Saturday that were filling sandbags too, giving back to their community. So
saw them there.
So it's
we had a good crew out there.
It sure did. So when you talk about that that amount of savings per month, that 105, 120, 130, it really does go back to what Commissioner Gourley said. What is 25,000 when we're saving that much in every month in inmate work crews. So just wanted to make mention that we do save that much every month, that if we weren't working them, somebody would have to pay for those salaries. And that is my report for the month.
Okay, motion to vote. Commissioner Gourley? Have a second? Right here. Commissioner Irwin? All those in favor of the motion to approve the report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Yes, sir.
We kind of worked it out with some of our partners last year, and I came in front of you all, and we had applied for this grant that you see attached, and it has come up again. And basically what it is, the headline on that grant says it all, is addressing the needs of incarcerated parents and their minor children. It can be debated, but after 25 years working in the system, and I've worked for 3 county facilities and a state prison, and I've seen grandfather, father, and son all in one facility at a time. So like I said, it can be debated, but there's some truth behind the fact that a high percentage of these children in our community will follow into the footsteps of their parents. As a
an adopted father myself. I have two boys who could have been in that same situation as some of the youth that we deal with, their parents. So there's a huge need to work with our children in our community who have incarcerated parents. 1 in 28 children in the United States have a parent who's incarcerated. When you really break that down and look at it, it's a little scary to think that one child out of those 28 has to go through so much. So this grant, it's not going to cost the county any money if we do get it. It's mostly in kind. We will be working with partners such as MTSU, our parenting program that we work with currently, and the Guidance Center. What we'll be doing is basically providing the inmates and the in-kind classroom space. So I would like permission to at least apply for this grant again this year because we didn't get it last year. So I'll answer any questions on that you might have.
I'll make a motion to approve having you apply for the grant and have whoever signed that grant that needs to make it applicable.
We have the motion to apply for the grant. Commissioner Irwin seconds the motion. We have another second right down here, too. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go and apply for the grant.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Sheriff, I believe it's your turn.
It'll be short and sweet. We have no amendments to the budget for this month. As far as our departmental budget report that has been submitted, the only two things that we're looking at that we're watching very closely, one is overtime. We have converted jail management system and also a records management system, and we are finishing that up now. We've got about 24 more to train. And that should wrap us up. A lot of that has been done on overtime, so we're very hopeful that once this is through, then our overtime will drop. The other is utilities. It's something that we're looking at very closely. We're running pretty close on that one, and if it doesn't drop a little bit, we may be trying to move some money in May. But that's about the only two items that we're really watching very closely right now. And I don't know if you wanted to address March the 9th or not.
I was going to mention that. I met recently with the sheriff. We discussed, I think it was last meeting, about the possibility of touring the facilities out there, especially before budget time and whatever. We come up with a date of Saturday, March the 9th at 9 o'clock there at the Sheriff's Department. That way they can have, it gives them the opportunity to have some people there to take us through there. And it wouldn't necessarily be during the busy part of the week. And that's what we're looking at, if that works in folks' schedule. They've been very gracious to invite us there. We're not going to be carried there, so we don't have to go through booking or anything of that type. You will see it. But 9 o'clock, March the 9th, that's a Saturday morning. So if that's agreeable with most everybody here, and we understand there may be those that, may have other things that happen that day, but, it's hard to get it on everybody's schedule, but we found that one possibly would work for us. So if you'd like to put that one down, we'll meet there in the lobby. I laid on everyone's desk a sheet of paper. It looks somewhat like this. It has that date on it. Also on that, it lists department's budget presentations and the way we're going to do that. It's pretty much the way we did it last time. To those of you that are new on this committee, this is how we done it. It seems to work very well. These individuals come in, present their budget before us for our approval or not approval. The other individuals can just send their reports in by SharePoint. And unless they have an amendment that needs approved by the committee here, they do not come in for that night. This shows the next 2 meetings that we'll be doing this, and the sheriff will be coming in on April 22nd, so we'll give us an opportunity to go through his department on the 9th.
But you're not going to let us email them in to you?
You can't either, well, unless you're just that satisfied with us and you trust us that much.
I hear you.
But we're going to give you the opportunity to sell your request right there.
Good.
Any questions on the report, gentlemen?
I just see under animal food and supplies, you're almost out of money. You're going to need to be transferring some before the end of the year.
We've got a lot of donated, and so we're, if not, we can come out of the drug fund.
I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Phillips makes the motion, second by Commissioner Gourley. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Appreciate it.
OSHA. We moved in here this evening to satisfy OSHA regulations, so we didn't get in trouble.
We done good today. We did good. We did not violate the maximum capacity rule, for sure. You have your report in front of you. OSHA's calendar year is January 1st through December 31st, so January was the first month of the calendar year. For OSHA, as far as we count our injuries. We had a total of 13 in the month of January, with 8 of those being OSHA recordables. 3 were restricted days, 3 lost time, and 2 all others. The total incurred dollars for the injuries are estimated at $18,290. And as you look at your graphs, you'll see where this year the number of injuries compared to the 2 previous years, and then also the incurred dollars compared this year to the 2 previous years. Just to remind you, last year in the month of January, we did have 2 injuries that were required quite a bit of treatment, and those 2 injuries is what pushed the dollars up for the month of January of last year. The Board of Education had 7 of those injuries, and the incurred dollars there for the Board of Education was $7,800, and the county had 6 for $10,490. And then, as you go through your report, you'll see there where the 6 for the county are distributed across Animal Control, Correctional Work Center, Solid Waste, Ambulance Service, and the Sheriff's Department. During the last meeting, it was not finalized, but the OSHA Form 300A has been completed, and it's been posted in all the county buildings. I provided you with a copy here, so that way you know that it was completed in a timely manner and has been posted in all the county and school buildings. The last page of your report, just wanted to kind of bring you up to date. Travelers Insurance, they hold the county's excess insurance. The county's self-insured for the first $100,000, and anything above that, Travelers covers the excess. They do a sampling every year of county buildings in order to, just make sure they're doing their due diligence and that we're doing the things that we should be about keeping our buildings up and all. They inspected 4 locations on February the 14th. You'll notice there Laverne Middle School, Siegel Middle School, Rock Springs Middle School, and Blackman. You'll notice below that the areas of concentration. They went through all 4 schools, looking at the electrical rooms, gyms, auditoriums, sprinklers, commercials, cooking areas, libraries, and the inspector actually went on the roof of each and every school, looking at the roofs of those schools. Out of that, he came out with 4 recommendations, and you'll see there that it's listed. The first one, using a clean agent fire extinguisher portable in all the computer servers for the schools. Remove excess combustible in the computer server rooms. A couple of the schools actually had some combustibles in those server rooms, and they were being recommended to remove that. Also, removing combustibles from utility rooms. That just happened to be that you get, over the years, things get pushed around, and some of those things get pushed into those areas. Also, in the Blackman Middle School, they actually had some renovations done to the server room and the main electrical room where additional lines were ran, holes were punched in the firewall to run the conduit through the firewall, and they failed to restore the fire-rated sealant in those holes to reestablish the firewall. All 4 of these have been sent to the Board of Education, and they're already working to resolve these issues and correct those things. And we're looking for recommendations to come back about the fire extinguishers from the Board of Education. So, and then we'll be once we get those recommendations back, we'll then provide our response back to Travelers on that. That's all I have right now, sir.
Good deal. Any questions? Do I have a motion? Approve the report? We have a motion made by Commissioner Gammon and second by Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Ambulance service report. It's all yours.
We made 2,730 calls last month. I'd like to point out to you that the response time finally got below 7 minutes, down to 6.7 minutes. And we think that is due to the day trucks that we've been employing, the 12-hour trucks rather than 24-hour shifts. We had 44 coroner's calls, 23 of those went for autopsy. We're on our projected yearly collections is $8,379,513. The table at the bottom of the page just reflects our ambulances and their mileage and their cost of operation. We drove a total of 53,359 miles last month. The next page is the in-services and training that we go to as well as offer. And as you can see, that's been pretty busy. The following page is a detailed report on our SORT team, Special Operations team. They made a total of 143 calls last month. I report the sick hours each month, and I think you'll see why in a minute. I have a budget amendment I'm going to ask for. We spent a total of $45,114.60 to replace people who were off sick for one reason or the other. That's it.
Okay. We'll approve your report and then work with your amendment. I have a motion for approval of the report. Commissioner Irwin, second. Commissioner Gourley. All those in favor of approving the report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Amendment, sir.
We are asking to transfer $100,000 from our paraprofessionals payroll into overtime pay. And that's necessitated by the somewhat unexpected use of FMLA and sick time and medical leave. And we feel like, we don't know that that'll get us through the end of the year, but we think if this abates somewhat, it will.
Mike, are you fully staffed?
We have one opening today.
I'm going to make a motion to cover this. We don't have a whole lot of choice about paying our bills here.
We have a motion to approve the amendment. Second. I got a second. Do you have Commissioner Phillips? The second. You have a question?
No, sir. I just second that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, call roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Here.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gourley? Yes. Commissioner Peete?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Carries. Yes, sir.
I have one other thing I'd like to bring up. The way our structure is at the ambulance service, we have 3 assistant directors, one over A shift, one over B shift, and one over C shift. They work 24 hours. We also have what we call the North End supervisor, which does essentially the same thing in Smyrna. We have some alternate people within the ambulance service so that if one of those people are out or takes off, that they can fill in. And typically the way that happens, if the assistant director here in Murfreesboro takes a vacation day, the North End supervisor will come up and perform those duties, and then this alternate person will perform those duties in Smyrna. In August of last year, one of our assistant directors had an infection that affected his spinal cord, making him a paraplegic. There's still hope of recovery, but he's not back yet. What we did at that time, we brought the North End supervisor down and made him temporarily the assistant director, and we brought one of the alternates up and made him temporarily, or actually it's a she, we brought her up temporarily and made her the North End supervisor. And we went ahead and adjusted their pay so that in that temporary position they would get that pay. I don't remember exactly the month, but our C, that was a C shift, and then several months ago, our A shift assistant director had a stroke while at work. He's recovering nicely, and I expect him to be back to work before too awfully long, as soon as his doctors release him. But we did the same thing. We moved the North End supervisor to cover his position and one of the alternates to cover the North End supervisor. And when we sent that pay adjustment through, Finance Office informed us that we weren't allowed to do that without the commission approval. So I guess I'm asking you for that approval, and then I guess I'm asking you for forgiveness for the other one, because we did that and nobody caught that one, so.
Historically, is that how we've been doing it every year?
There's nothing unusual about what we did. Evidently, it was just a rule that I hadn't run across in 40-something years.
Do you have to get our permission to do it every single time?
I don't know. That's what I asked the mayor today. I said, I thought you could give me that permission.
You're not asking for any additional money?
No.
Can we do a blanket motion to cover everybody wants to do that? That's my motion.
We got a motion to approve it when you see the need to do so. Have a second? And a second down here. Commissioner Gourley?
I think the reason that she brought that up is we've had instances where some of the departments had basically given promotions, and which also came with added pay without our permission. This was the old sheriff's department, and there were several positions where basically somebody was taken, say, from a sergeant to a lieutenant, or some kind of leadership position, and it became problematic because of the amount of money difference in there. Now, where Mike's talking about not any money, but that's why that rule, I think, kind of was put in place. As long as he's got this covered under his budget, I don't feel like he does, but I just wanted to let you know, why that discussion came about. as long as he's got the money, if he's got somebody, say, out on medical leave, and they're not being paid, through the regular salary, and he can divert that salary, and it's temporary, and they're going back. In these other cases, it wasn't something that they wanted to make temporary. They wanted to continue that. So I'm okay with it on a temporary basis.
Okay. We have the motion to give him the opportunity when you have emergency situations like that to do it to take care of those situations. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, I believe that's everything on the agenda. Mayor, do you have anything else needs to come before this group? Okay. If not,